Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapatam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadanti Swam Vedantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shiyata Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Shajivam Sadvaitam Sadhutam Parijana Sayitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishavitamscha He Krishna Karana Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopikanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kancha Gaurange Radhe Brindavaneshwari Rishabhana Sudadevi Pranamani Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Dubhevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Go Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Namaste Api Sachi Putramacha Surupam Rupam Dajagrajam Uru Paramatoram Gostavatam Radha Kundam Girivaram Aho Radhika Madhavayasyam Prapto Yasha Pratita Kripaya Shri Guru Tandatosmi Gurave Gurachandraya Radhikaya Tadaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Bande Guru Misha Bhaktam Isha Misha Vatarakam Tat Prakasham Tat Shakti Krishna Chaitanya Samgakam Bande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sohodito Gododa Puspavantu Chitrasandu Tamonadu Anapitam Chiram Charat Karo Nivatanakalo Samapaitam Anatam Dwalam Rasam Shri Bhakti Shwayam Hari Parata Sundara Duti Kadamba Sandipita Surada Kandas Paratu Vasachinandana Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Hladini Shakti Asmit Ekatmana Vapi Bhuvi Pura Dayam Bedam Gatu Tu Chaitanyapyam Prakatam Adunana Twadvayam Chakyam Aptam Radha Bhav Duti Savolitam Nome Krishna Sarupam Chaitanya Charanam Bhojama Kandalyo Jabe Yesham Prasada Matrena Paramapyamo Bhavat Bande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Bande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Krishna Bhavamritameya Asvadaya Svedayam Bhaktam Premi Dikshama Sikshayat Bande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Bhakta Nugraha Kataram Yena Kanapi Santastam Bhakta Tatena Shadayam Pangam Lagayate Selam Mukhamavatayak Shritanta Kripatamaham Bande Krishna Chaitanya Ishwaram Durgami Patimayanda Shiskala Padagatyamo Swakripiyasti Danena Shantu Shanduvalam Manam Shri Rupshin Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasu Raghunath Echai Guru Karanchana Vandana Yahweh Te Vignana Sabhista Param Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskricha Naram Chaiva Narottama Devam Saraswati Vyasam Tado Dhamadayat Nasta Prayusham Vadrisham Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya Bhagavate Tamas Loka Bhakti Bhavita Naistaki. So, in the 6th canto, there's a very nice section involving, it's actually entitled Mother Parvati Curses Chitraketu. There's always a need to understand how things are working from the absolute platform. Like death. Recently one young girl died from cancer. We have a ceremony tomorrow in the temple. Then we know a few weeks ago there was a death. Someone left their body, Madhukanta's wife. Impending death with Shrutakirti Prabhu. And actually death is happening all around us. It's happening all around us. So continually we have to see it. We have to see things properly. And not get carried away by the waves of sentimentality. It's so easy to become sentimental. You become sentimental, and it means you see things on the mental platform. And the mind's purpose is to accept and reject. You understand that? The mind accepts and it rejects. Sometimes it's happy, sometimes it's distressful. But above the mind is the intelligence. So you've got to see it with intelligence, what's actually happening. So there was an incident where Maharaj Chitraketu exchanged some rather familiar remarks with Lord Shiva. You may know the story. Lord Shiva was sitting with Parvati, or his consort. She was sitting basically on his lap, and they were sitting surrounded by many thousands of great saints and sages, rishis, yogis. And King Chitraketu happened to come. He had a special type of vimana. Vimana means flower aircraft, some special type of aircraft. And he was very surprised when he saw the great Lord Shiva, who is completely self-controlled, acting as if he was an ordinary human being, being somewhat henpecked even by his wife, sitting there and giving his wife attention. And then what made it even more amazing to Chitraketu Maharaj was that he was doing it in the assembly of great sages. He was acting like a grihashtra. Not even grihashtra, we could say grihamadi, grihamedi. Grihamedi means like a materialist. Grihashtra, ashram, is where husband and wife, they're in the ashram. And the purpose of ashram is to go forward in spiritual life. So Chitraketu Maharaj was very surprised. He was like astonished. So he said a few things which could possibly be interpreted as being a little over-familiar. And he said how wonderful it is that, Lord Shiva is acting like this. I'll read you some of the things. Here we go. Chitraketu said, listen to this. Lord Shiva, the spiritual master, the general populace, he's the best of all living entities. So first of all, he glorifies them. He's the best of all living entities who've accepted material bodies. He enunciates the system of religion. Yet how wonderful it is that he is embracing his wife, Parvati, in the midst of an assembly of great saintly persons. Chitraketu Maharaj laughed loudly and spoke with the hearing of Parvati. Then he said, Lord Shiva, whose hair is matted on his head, has certainly undergone great austerities and penances. Indeed, he is the president in the assembly of the strict followers of Vedic principles. Nevertheless, he is seated with his wife on his lap in the midst of saintly persons and is embracing her as if she were a shameless, ordinary human being. So Prabhupada says here, Prabhupada quotes, he says, he appreciated Lord Shiva's position, but when he saw Lord Shiva sitting in the midst of saintly persons and acting like a shameless ordinary man, he was astonished. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur remarks that although Chitraketu criticized Lord Shiva, he did not offend Lord Shiva. He criticized him, but he didn't actually offend him. Then he continued. So he continued. Come nearer. So I can grab hold of you. So then he said, so Chitraketu Maharaj is speaking, ordinary conditioned persons generally embrace their wives and enjoy their company in a solitary place. How wonderful it is that Lord Mahadev, although a great master of austerity, is embracing his wife openly in the midst of an assembly of great saints. See, so this is Chitraketu's amazement. Sukadev Goswami continued, my dear King Parikshit, after hearing Chitraketu's statement, Lord Shiva, the most powerful personality, whose knowledge is fathomless, simply smiled and remained silent. And all the members of the assembly followed the Lord by not saying anything. So what did Lord Shiva do? Smiled. He did not take offense. Did not take any offense at all. And all the members in the assembly, great yogis, great mystics, they also did not take offense, and they also smiled. But one person didn't smile. Who was that? Parvati. And Prabhupada describes why. Because she has a woman's nature. Sorry to say that, but truth is the truth. Anyhow, we shall read about it. Prabhupada writes, Lord Shiva, who is always deep in knowledge, could understand Chitraketu's purpose. Therefore he was not at all angry. Rather, he simply smiled and remained silent. The members of the assembly surrounding Lord Shiva could also understand Chitraketu's purpose. Consequently, following the behavior of Lord Shiva, they did not protest. Instead, following their master, they remained silent. If the members of the assembly, this is important, if the members of the assembly thought that Chitraketu had actually blasphemed Lord Shiva, they would certainly have left at once, blocking their ears with their hands. So you could use the argument, well, Lord Shiva, he's being personally criticized. So obviously, when someone criticizes you, you tolerate it. But when we hear criticism of a devotee, then we should become angry. So you could use the argument, well, Parvati is hearing criticism of her husband. But to diffuse that argument, there are thousands of sages who also are followers of Lord Shiva and who also heard Lord Shiva being criticized. But how did they react? They simply smiled. They didn't overreact. Not knowing the prowess, translation, not knowing the prowess of Lord Shiva and Parvati, Chitraketu strongly criticized them. But as Prabhupada said, he didn't offend them. Apparently there's a difference. You can criticize without offense. His statements were not at all pleasing, and therefore Goddess Parvati, being very angry, spoke as follows to Chitraketu, who thought himself better than Lord Shiva in controlling the senses. So, what does Prabhupada say? Prabhupada says, although Chitraketu never meant to insult Lord Shiva, he should not have criticized the Lord, even though the Lord was transgressing social custom. It is said, one who is very powerful should be understood to be faultless. For example, one should not find fault with the sun, although it evaporates urine from the street. The most powerful cannot be criticized by an ordinary man, or even by a great personality. Chitraketu should have known that Lord Shiva, although sitting in that way, was not at all to be criticized. The difficulty was that Chitraketu, having become a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, or Sankarshan, was somewhat proud at having achieved Sankarshan's favor, and therefore thought that he could now criticize anyone, even Lord Shiva. This kind of pride in a devotee is never tolerated. A Vaishnava should always remain very meek and humble, and offer respects to others. A Vaishnava should not try to minimize anyone else's position. It is better to remain humble and meek and chant the Hare Krishna mantra. The word Nijitatma Bhimanina indicates that Chitraketu thought himself a better control of the senses than Lord Shiva, although actually he was not. Because of these considerations, Mother Parvati was somewhat angry at Chitraketu. The goddess Parvati said, "Alas, how has this upset now received a post from which to punish the shameless persons like us? Has he been appointed ruler, carrying the rod of punishment? Is he now the only master of everything?" So what's that called? It's called sarcasm. So Parvati is being sarcastic. Is he the controller of everyone? Is he carrying the rod of punishment? Is he the master of everyone? She's being sarcastic. And she continues, because ladies are good at being sarcastic. "Alas, Lord Brahma, who's taken his birth from the lotus flower, does not know the principles of religion, nor do the great saints like Bhrigu and Narada, nor the 4 Kumaras headed by Sanat Kumar, Manu and Kumpila have also forgotten the religious principles. I suppose it is because of this they have not tried to stop Lord Shiva from behaving improperly." Because all of these people were present there, you see. The 4 Kumaras were present. Narada was present. But they didn't stop. This, now she comes out more heavily. This Chitraketu is the lowest of Kshatriyas, for he has impudently overridden Brahma and the other demigods by insulting Lord Shiva, upon whose lotus feet they always meditate. Lord Shiva is personified religion and the spiritual master of the entire world, and therefore Chitraketu must be punished. Text 14. This person is puffed up because of his achievements, thinking, "I am the best." He does not deserve to approach the shelter of Lord Vishnu's lotus feet, which are worshipped by all saintly persons, for he is impotent, thinking himself greatly important. This is wonderful. Prabhupada says here, purport, if a devotee thinks he or she is very much advanced in devotional service, then he or she is considered puffed up and unfit to sit beneath the shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. Text 15. "O impotent one, my dear son, now take birth." So now she's making a curse. So now she's cursing. "Now take birth in a low sinful family of demons, so you'll not commit such an offense again towards exalted saintly persons in the world." Purport. One should be very careful not to commit offenses of the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas, of whom Lord Shiva is the best. Mother Parvati was justified in punishing Chitraketu, Prabhupada is writing, for Chitraketu impotently criticized the Supreme Father Mahadev, who is the father of the living entities conditioned within the material world. The goddess Durga is called Mother, and Lord Shiva is called Father. A pure Vaishnava should be very careful to engage in a specific duty without criticizing others. This is the safest position. Very nice instructions here. A pure Vaishnava should what? Engage in his or her specific duty without criticizing others. This is the safest position. Years ago I learned all these off by heart. Very powerful. Otherwise, if one tends to criticize others, he may commit the great offense of criticizing a Vaishnava. This is nice. This ties in with Kartik. To surrender to Krishna means to surrender to his devotees also. For no one can be a proper servant of Krishna unless he is a proper servant of a devotee. Without serving a servant of Krishna, one cannot be elevated to being a servant of Krishna. Alright? So without serving the devotee, you can't serve Krishna. In other words, in order to approach Krishna, you have to approach the devotee. Or Prabhupada has written in Chaitanya Charitamrita, to get love of Krishna, one gets love of Krishna from a devotee. Or he's also said, to become a devotee, you need the mercy of a devotee. To become a devotee, you need the mercy of another devotee. Therefore, Mother Parvati spoke to Chitraketu exactly like a mother who says to a naughty child, "My dear child, I am punishing you so you won't do anything like this again." This tendency of a mother to punish her child is found even in Mother Yasoda, who became the mother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mother Yasoda punished Krishna by binding him and showing him a stick. Thus it is a duty of a mother to chastise her beloved son. Even in the case of the Supreme Lord, it is to be understood that Mother Durga was justified in punishing Chitraketu. This punishment was a boon to Chitraketu because after taking birth as a demon called Vitrasura, he was promoted directly to Vaikuntha. So now Prabhupada is saying actually that Mother Parvati was justified. Translation. Sukadeva Goswami continued, "My dear King Parikshit, when Chitraketu was cursed by Parvati, he descended from his airplane, bowed before her with great humility, and pleased her completely. Chitraketu Maharaj said," now you've just been cursed. Imagine you've just been cursed. So this is what Chitraketu Maharaj said to the person who cursed him. And what was the curse? Take birth in the family of demons. It's a pretty horrible curse, isn't it? So he said, "My dear mother, with my own hands folded together, I accept the curse upon me. I do not mind the curse, for happiness and distress are given by the demigods as a result of one's past deeds." In other words, I don't mind this curse. I welcome this curse. Because happiness and distress is ordained. In the position, for a conditioned soul, it's ordained by past karma. And if you're a devotee, you have no karma. It's also ordained by Krishna, the same person. He ordains everything. As Prabhupada says, the Lord is very kind and affectionate towards his devotees. Therefore, a devotee in any condition is not subject to the results of karma. We're not subject to the results of karma. All you have to do is chant Krishna's name once, Namabas, and your karma is washed away. And if you don't believe that, then that's an offense to the holy name. Artavada, which is the fifth offense, means you think that the glories of the holy name are like concocted imagination, like trumped up. That we're just saying this to get you to chant. The glories of the holy name are not imagination. So we can understand this from what is happening to Shrutakirti Prabhu is not his karma, is personally ordained by Krishna. And if something is personally ordained by Krishna, where's the question of lamentation? Why should we lament? Something is ordained by Krishna. If Krishna wants something, how can we go against that? You understand that? So it was ordained by Krishna that Prabhupada left at a certain age. It was ordained by Krishna that Gauragovinda Maharaj left. It was ordained. It was personally Krishna's arrangement that Tamal Krishna Maharaj, that all these devotees we know about, like Archa Vigraha, that they left. So Shrutakirti Prabhu's present condition is ordained, is sanctioned completely by Krishna. So we shouldn't be worried, or we shouldn't be disturbed thinking, he's bereft of Krishna's protection or bereft of, Krishna's mercy or anything. Not at all. When the living entity becomes more helpless, then Krishna responds more. Did you know that? I'll give you the example. Devaki was in prison. you know. And so many of her sons were killed, one after the other, by Kamsa. And Kunti was banished to the forest. All right? And she had to fight Pandavas. So Prabhupada gives the comparison between the two. And he asked the question, who got more mercy? Did Devaki get more mercy in the prison cell? Or was it Kunti that got more mercy? And then Prabhupada gives the answer, Kunti got more mercy. And why she got more mercy? Because she was more helpless. Why was she more helpless? Because she didn't have a husband. And Prabhupada gives that example. She didn't have a husband. She was more helpless. So she got more mercy. So you consider the position of Shuto. He's in a very helpless condition. Therefore, more mercy comes. Sometimes Krishna personally does this. He puts us in a difficult position and we become more helpless. And then he responds. First of all, he takes away our material support. Krishna personally takes away our material support. And what is the ultimate thing that we need? Our health. But Krishna can take away your family members. Gradually he can take away your wealth. I've seen this. But the ultimate thing he takes away is your health. And then you become totally helpless. And you have no one to turn to except Krishna. You can't turn to your family members. They don't want to hear about you. You're a failure. Right? You don't have any money in the bank account. You can't rely on your health. It's useless. You see? So Krishna personally puts you in that situation. Krishna personally orchestrates something and takes away your material support. And then he personally comes and reciprocates and protects you. It's all Krishna. So this is very important. The Lord is very kind and affectionate towards his devotee, and therefore a devotee in any condition is not subject to the result of the karma. So Chitraketu Maharaj continues. Deluded by ignorance, the living entity wanders in the forest of this material world, enjoying the happiness and distress resulting from his past deeds, everywhere and at all times. Therefore, my dear mother, neither you nor I am to be blamed for this incident. So Chitraketu Maharaj is presenting himself as a conditioned soul. And he's saying, neither you nor I am to be blamed by this. This happened by providence. Providence means Krishna. Providence, fate, the fickle finger of fate, providence, luck. We don't use that word really, luck. We use the word providence. It's Krishna's desire. That's what it means. Providence means by Krishna's arrangement, Krishna's personal desire. Text 19. In this material world, neither the living entity himself nor others, friends and enemies, are the cause of material happiness and distress. But because of gross ignorance, the living entity thinks that he and others are the cause. So other people are not the cause of our happiness and distress. It's due to our past karma. Therefore you have someone who's very rich and very good looking and very handsome, but they're completely disturbed. And other people are very poor and bereft of family members, but they seem to be reasonably peaceful. He continues. Chitraketu Maharaj now is a pleasing Mother Parvati. He says, this material world resembles the waves of a constantly flowing river, like a river's flowing. Therefore, what is a curse and what is a favor? Sometimes the wave is up, sometimes the wave is down. So what's a curse and what's a favor? The curse may end up being a favor. Like Maharaj Parikshit was cursed to die within 7 days. Actually, it was a favor. Chitraketu Maharaj is being cursed to take birth in the family of demons, but actually it's a favor. So what's a curse and what's a favor? Lord Chaitanya was one day cursed. Lord Chaitanya was having nocturnal kirtan in his house in Srivasangam. And one Brahmin, puffed up smarter Brahmin, wanted to get in. And Lord Chaitanya refused to allow him in. So this Brahmin became very angry. And the next day he saw Lord Chaitanya, and he cursed Lord Chaitanya. He took his Brahmin thread and he cursed Lord Chaitanya and said, I curse you, just like you would not let me into your house. So I curse you that you will not be allowed into your house to enjoy material opulence. And Lord Chaitanya said, Haribo! Yeah. Hallelujah, lovely. I like that curse. So that curse was a blessing. The Brahmin looked at him. So, what's a curse? What is a favor? What are the heavenly planets and what are the hellish planets? Well, I mean, what is the heavenly planets? What is the hellish planet? What is actually happiness and what is distress? Because the waves flow constantly. None of them have any eternal effect. It's like a merry-go-round in the fairground. You're on the merry-go-round. Sometimes you're up, so-called happiness, a human body, demigod body, attractive body, good health, and then sometimes you're down. You're in a hog's body, you're in a lower body, you're in a fish body. Sometimes up, you got good health, sometimes you got bad health. Up, down, up and down, up and down. Text 21. The Supreme Personality of God, Chitraketu is saying, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one. Unaffected by the conditions of the material world, he creates all the conditioned souls by his own personal potency. Because of being contaminated by the material energy, the living entity is put into ignorance and thus into different conditions of bondage. Sometimes, by knowledge, the living entity is given liberation. In Sattva-gun and Rajagun, he is subject to happiness and distress. So in other words, the modes of material nature affect the living entity. And if you're affected by the mode of ignorance, then it's complete foolishness. If you're affected by the mode of passion, it's complete distress. But if you're infected or influenced by the mode of goodness, then you can begin to understand your spiritual nature. He continues, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is equally disposed towards all living entities. Therefore no one is very dear to him and no one is his great enemy. No one is his friend and no one is his relative. Being unattached to the material world, he has no affection for so-called happiness or hatred for so-called distress. These two terms, happiness and distress, are relative. Since the Lord is always happy, for him there is no question of distress. So now Chitraketu addresses directly, O Parvati, you are now unnecessarily angry. But since all my happiness and distress is destined by my past activities, I do not plead to be excused or relieved from your curse. Although what I have said is not wrong, please let whatever you think is wrong be pardoned. So completely equiposed. He says, my dear Parvati, personally, what I said I don't think was wrong, but even though you may think it was wrong, I'm asking you to please excuse me for what you think was wrong. Completely equiposed. Sukadev Goswami continued, O King Parikshit, subduer of the enemy, after Chitraketu satisfied Lord Shiva and his wife, he boarded his airplane and left as they looked on. When Lord Shiva and Parvati saw that Chitraketu, although informed of the curse, was unafraid, they smiled, being fully astonished by his behavior. Now they were astonished, because he was smiling, and he was completely equiposed, although he'd been cursed to take birth in a demon family. The same as Maharaj Parikshit. He was actually equiposed and smiling, although he'd been cursed to die by the snake bite in 1 week. Thereafter, in the presence of the great sage Narada, the demons, the inhabitants of Siddhaloka, and his personal associates, Lord Shiva, his most powerful, spoke to his wife while they all listened. Now, Lord Shiva is going to admonish his wife. What is he going to say? Lord Shiva said, my dear beautiful Parvati, have you seen the greatness of the Vaishnavas? Being servants of the Supreme Lord, Hari, they are great souls and are not interested in any kind of material happiness. Purport. Lord Shiva, the husband of Parvati, told his wife, my dear Parvati, you are very beautiful in your bodily features. Certainly you are glorious, but I do not think that you can compete with the beauty and glory of devotees who have become servants of the Supreme Lord. Of course, Lord Shiva smiled when he joked with his wife in that way, for others cannot speak like that. The Supreme Lord, Shiva continued, just see, although you cursed the king, he was not afraid or sorry. Rather, he offered his respect to you, called you mother, and accepted your curse, thinking himself faulty. He did not say anything in retaliation. So when Krishna puts us in a difficult situation, when we're dying, like Shruta, or when we're criticized, or we're in a very awkward situation, well, how should we react? Should we blame Krishna? Should we complain mentally, verbally? We should simply accept it, just like Chitraketu Maharaj accepted it with acquiescence. What does acquiescence mean? Without protest. If something what we gauge to be bad happens to us, will we protest? Will we complain? Usually we do complain, but we're not supposed to complain. I'll read it again. Just see, although you cursed the king, he was not afraid or sorry. Rather, he offered respect to you, called you mother, and accepted your curse, thinking himself faulty. He did not say anything in retaliation. Pretty good. Didn't say anything in retaliation. This is the excellence of a devotee. By mildly tolerating your curse, he has certainly excelled the glory of your beauty and your power to curse him. I can impartially judge that this devotee, Chitraketu, has defeated you and your excellence simply by becoming a pure devotee of the Lord. Prabhupada writes, devotees do not mind reverses in life because in the service of Narayan they have learned to tolerate whatever hardships there may be. They do not care whether they're in heaven or in hell. They simply engage in the Lord's service. All right, this is the bit I was going to get to. And now I'm simply repeating what Prabhupada said. Here is the difference between a man and a female. 3/4 ladies here. Hope I get out alive. And I got some bodyguards here. Here is a difference between the male and female that exists even in the highest status of life. In fact, even between Lord Shiva and his wife. Lord Shiva could understand Chitraketu very nicely, but Parvati could not. Thus, even in the highest status of life, there is a difference between the understanding of a male and that of a female. It may be clearly said that the understanding of a woman is always inferior to the understanding of a man. In the Western countries, there is now agitation to the effect that men and women should be considered equal. But from this verse, it appears that a woman is always less intelligent than man. Amen. Of course, this is generally speaking, but, we do have ladies within our society who are very intelligent. And even, some ladies have become rulers of, like Indira Gandhi and Margaret Thatcher, daughter of a grocer, a man who had a grocery shop, the Iron Lady. She ran the Britain she got 2 or 3 terms, I think. Very, very, very powerful lady. So you do get very, very powerful ladies also. Anyhow, the real point I wanted to make was not this. The real point was that reverses in life will take place. And they're happening all the time. So how do we understand them? Well, we have to understand them with intelligence. And that's the problem, that sometimes people who are sentimental can't understand things with the intelligence. And generally, ladies do tend to be more sentimental than men, although you do have very sentimental men also. And you do have ladies who work on the intellectual level. That is there. But generally, characteristic of woman is she's more sentimental. So one has to understand things with one's intelligence. So we're gathered here also to sort of pray for Shruta. It seems like his hearing is going down. And apparently Bhakti Chumaraj came today and spoke to him for about 40 minutes. So it seems like his health is deteriorating, but we know that it's gradually going down anyhow. But we should understand that, Lord Chaitanya will look after him. There's no question of not being looked after. I was also thinking, like tomorrow is that ceremony for that young girl who died. She was 15 years old and she died from cancer, Dr. Vinod's cousin. So people will be lamenting. But I was thinking, it could be that she's been taken from an inferior position, living in an Indian girl's body, suffering from disease somewhere in Chatsworth, to a superior position, because apparently she took Mahaprasad and she was listening to Krishna's holy name at the time of death. So why should we lament if someone is taken from an inferior status of life to a superior position? Where's the question of lamentation? Why should we lament? Rather, we should be happy. But people don't see it like that. They just don't see it like that. So there's no question with a devotee like Shruta, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will look after him. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will extend himself. Lord Chaitanya is already, even without our prayers, he's already looking after. The affection that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has on his devotees is unprecedented. Prabhupada writes that Lord Krishna is not as magnanimous as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What does the word magnanimous mean? What does it mean? Merciful, kind, compassionate, generous. So Lord Krishna is not as kind, he's not as merciful, he's not as generous. Prabhupada has written this, as Mahaprabhu himself. So, Shruta has served Mahaprabhu's mission. This is personally Mahaprabhu's mission. It's personally, Prabhupada has written, this ISKCON movement is non-different from the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So personally, Lord Chaitanya and Panchatattva, Nityananda, Advaita will come and give protection and help. So simply what they're doing is moving different Vaishnavas around. By Mahaprabhu's arrangement, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was moved around. Now he has some other service to do, perhaps in some other universe, possibly with Prabhupada again. There's not being sentimental to say that. He may be assisting. There was one very nice offering I read in the Vyasa Puja, I forget which godbrother, saying, it was Bira Krishna or someone, that again, Tamal Krishna Maharaj is serving Srila Prabhupada again somewhere. Because Lord Chaitanya's pastimes are going on all the time. Right now, Mahaprabhu's pastimes are going on. Right now, Damodar Astakam is going on. Right now, it's in some universe, Krishna is running and Mother Yasoda is chasing after him. Right now. And Gaur Leela is going on right now. And this ISKCON movement is a branch of Gaur Leela. So conceivably, Prabhupada is continuing to preach in other places. That doesn't mean he's not there in the spiritual world. Nityasiddhas can be simultaneously in 2 places at once, 3 places at once, 4 places at once. It's not impossible. Nityasiddhas have that ability. Rupa Goswami writes that a Nityasiddha has 55% of Krishna's 64 qualities. Of this there is no doubt. So we accept Prabhupada as a Nityasiddha. He can be participating in Mahaprabhu's pastimes. He can be establishing ISKCON somewhere else in another universe. And he can still have his eternal identity with Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. Actually, Goloka Vrindavan has 2 divisions. Did you know this? One division is Krishna, and one division is who? Gauranga. Those who are attached to Krishna's madhurya, or sweetness, first go to Krishna Loka, or Krishna's division. But those who are more attached to the Audhuya aspect of Mahaprabhu, which means the mercy, they join in Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Goloka Vrindavan. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Jaivedhamma describes those who, while practicing sadhana bhakti, are more attached to Krishna's madhurya ras, naturally will go there with Krishna. But those, while practicing sadhana bhakti, are more attached to the Audhuya aspect of the Lord, which is Mahaprabhu, will go to Mahaprabhu. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, but some exist in both places simultaneously. Some are in both places simultaneously. So, this is in Jaivedhamma. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is very wonderful. So, we should have firm faith that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is looking after. Not only looking after, he's organizing this. Prabhupada writes, nothing is done without the superintendence of the Lord. That's right here in this 6th canto. Nothing is done without the superintendence of the Lord. So Krishna is orchestrating this. That Shrutikirti Prabhu became ill, his liver, his kidney failure slowly is going down more and more. And gradually he's becoming more and more dependent on the Lord because he can't do anything. So Mahaprabhu is increasing his dependency, and Mahaprabhu is reciprocating more and more and more. It's a psychological fact that when you meet someone and when you say goodbye to them, that's when the biggest exchange of affection is. But when you're with a person, you usually don't care. Isn't it? When you first meet a person and when you say goodbye, there's like a burst of affection. But when you're with the person, it's no big deal. So when you leave your body, there's an exchange of affection. And Mahaprabhu very much responds. And we've seen this in the lives of many Vaishnavas who left their bodies. So this is also happening with Shruta. And eventually, Shruti, he won't be able to speak. He can hardly speak now. So it'll be difficult for us to ascertain really what level he's on, because he's not expressing himself. Usually you express yourself, and by what you say and by your emotions you can determine, they're on Nishta, they're on Ruchi, they're on Ashakti, or they're on Bhav. But generally, just before you're about to die, your external senses withdraw, and you don't express yourself. And it's a little difficult to ascertain really where a person's at. But we can tell because Shruta has done so much service, 20 years of wonderful service for Mahaprabhu. The Lord Chaitanya will reciprocate with him, and he will jump some levels. Like go from Nishta to Ruchi to Ashakti. He will, at the end, this is what happens, you jump. And his next birth will be very, very auspicious. Either somewhere in some material universe joining in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, or like all of us have missed Mahaprabhu's direct pastimes by 500 years. But it could be in our next life. We don't miss it. We're actually part of it. There we are in Navadvip, and we see Mahaprabhu walking and taking bath in the Ganges. It could be like that. Or we take bath in Jagannath, or we take birth in Jagannath Puri. So whatever the question is, Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Father of the Sankirtan mission. And he will give full protection. And he's organizing everything anyhow. And he knows exactly when he wants to take Shruta. He already has it all worked out. In so many days or so many weeks or whatever it is, so many months, he knows exactly when it's going to happen. And he knows exactly how he's going to do it. It's just we're left in the dark a little because we're not too sure. And of course, naturally, we're attached to Vaishnavas. So he's going to leave us. So, there's some bereavement there. Therefore, Prabhupada said that the appearance and the disappearance of a Vaishnava, it's both a time for pleasure and also a time for distress, for both. So we have to see it philosophically. We can't get all sentimental and get all in our heads. It's got to be seen. Everything has to be seen philosophically. Nothing is done without the superintendence of God, Krishna. Krishna orchestrates. He puts people in different positions, puts people in different families. For a while, they exist, and he's responsible for maintaining everyone. Then he picks them up and puts them in other places. Just like that. Sometimes he does it very quickly, like a road accident. Sometimes it's a more lingering death, terminal cancer, like this. It's been going on for 6 months. Sometimes it's like that. So we have to always see our situation like that. At any time we may be asked to leave our material bodies. Not asked. We won't be asked. We'll be forced. Now, are we going to fight it? Are we going to put up a fight? No. And grab hold of the bed. And grab hold of the wife and the husband. This is what sometimes the materialists do. Grab hold. Just give me a few more years. No, I want to stay. Because they have no knowledge of their next life. They don't understand they're eternal. They think there's only one life, so let me live as long as I can, even if it's another, 20 minutes, or, let me just live as long as I can. But they don't understand. See, now Shuta, Kirti Prabhu, he has knowledge. He has knowledge. Not just theoretical, realized. Therefore he's not lamenting. He's not weeping, he's not lamenting, he's not disturbed. He's not disturbed at all. We are more disturbed standing around him than he is. Yeah? The same with Srila Prabhupada. He is preaching to us. He is leaving his body and he is preaching to us. Generally when someone dies, we're preaching to the person. You're not this body, think of Krishna. Right, isn't it? Generally. We have to preach to the person who's dying. But Shruta, his mind is there. Krishna is giving them that intelligence. So Krishna is Mahaprabhu is giving him that disease, and then Mahaprabhu is making him more dependent, and then Mahaprabhu is reciprocating and protecting him, and then Mahaprabhu is giving him the intelligence to think of himself, and in the end Mahaprabhu is taking him. Everything is God. Everything is Krishna. Everything. You can't make a move without the sanction of God. Therefore, Prabhupada says, you should know firmly that without Krishna's desire, nothing happens. Nothing happens. Not even one heartbeat. Or to speak of someone leaving their body. Or to speak of a Vaishnava leaving their body. So that's how we have to see it. Any questions?
We're always in fear of death. That fear is constantly with us at any time that something may happen to us. So how to overcome that fear?
Fear in the Bhagavatam, the 11th canto, there's a verse many times quoted. Fear is simply due to the bodily concept of life. That's all. Fear is only due to the bodily concept of life. There's a verse in the 11th canto. So because we identify with the body, fear. But if you identify with your spiritual identity, then you know you're eternal. Then why bother about death? Why worry about death? You know you're not this body. What's the big deal? Change of body, change of clothes. What's the big deal? Shruta's leaving a wasted body, and you'll take birth again. And another opportunity to serve Prabhupada and Mahaprabhu. This young girl left, what was her name? Riona, this young 15-year-old girl, Vinod's cousin, left her body, terminal cancer. But she's left a wasted body, but she was hearing Krishna's name at the time of death. She was taking a lot of Mahaprasad. Then her bhakti has also started. In a big way, big bang it started. And she will continue with her bhakti. So fear is due to bodily concept of life. And what is the opposite of fear? Courage? No. Fortitude? What would the opposite of fear be? peacefulness, I guess. Shanti, peace. How can you become peaceful? You have to rise above the mind. You have to rise above the intelligence. You have to come to the spiritual level, and then you're peaceful. Dhira's tattva namuyate. One who is dhira. He's not muyate. Muyate means bewildered. One who is peaceful. He is not bewildered. He or she is not bewildered. The wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. So, it's the basic foundation of spiritual life. You're not this body. We talk about it every day. And we need to hear it every day because we forget it every day. That's why. Before we start talking about Krishna's pastimes and all that, let's just first understand we're not this body. But let's put it into practice, not just theoretical. Let's have some realization. So this is very instructive, seeing Shruta. He's actually quite peaceful. Quite peaceful. Not lamenting. It would seem that we're in more anxiety than him. Because he understands, not this body. Shrutakirti Prabhu, I know, I've known him for so many years. He always had a more philosophical understanding. He wasn't one of those, Indian sentimental devotees. He wasn't, in the sentimental bracket. He never really was. I saw this when his first guru, Jayatirtha Prabhu, had a problem. As far as he was concerned, it didn't really bewilder him. He knew, what his path was, and he stuck to it. And I've seen over the years, he just is pretty fixed when it comes to buddhi yoga, buddhi yoga of the intelligence. I've seen that more so than quite a few of us, which is nice. It's very refreshing. And now I'm seeing also, blind, can't hear so good, can't walk, can't talk, body wasted. But still, when he does speak, it's coherent and it's refreshing to hear. So we should know without doubt, Mahaprabhu is looking after, Mahaprabhu is protecting. And he's there in all of our lives. But sometimes we need this experience. Either we need to see it, or we need to personally go through it for us to sort of realize more how important the Lord is in our life and what an important part he does play in our life. And no doubt he's playing an important part in all of your lives, but we can bring him to the front even more. In other words, become even more Krishna conscious and think of him even more, depend on him even more. Is that all right? Yes?
From much all of us devotees, we're familiar with theoretically the concept of dying and suffering. But sometimes we think that actually, we don't want Krishna to put us into anxiety. We don't want him to put us into suffering. Because we're already struggling with our spiritual lives to maintain and try to improve. And we don't want further suffering to come upon us. And we sort of wish that Krishna would have things arranged nicely for us so we can just continue that.
But what he does is, he may put us into a seemingly difficult situation, and we may be apprehensive, but then as the Super Soul, as the Lord of our heart, he'll give us the intelligence to handle it at the same time, and then we realize, wow, I never thought I could handle it. How am I handling it? It's Krishna. Just like, Maharaj, he went to the bank of the river Jamuna, and he fasted for 1 week. And he didn't take water, he didn't sleep, and he didn't eat. But previously he was in the forest, and he had parched throat, and he felt a little bit thirsty, and he went to a Brahmin. And the Brahmin didn't give him water, and he lost his temper. So on the one hand, he was a little bit thirsty, and he couldn't control his thirst. And yet, shortly after that, for 1 week, he didn't drink water. How is that? How is that? You understand? Or again, the same example. The yogi, the rishi, is meditating, and Maharaj Parikshit thinks he's pretending. He's ignoring me because I'm a Kshatriya and he's a Brahmin. And Maharaj Parikshit became offended and took a dead snake and put it, garlanded. But then he got cursed by the young Brahmin. Shringi cursed him. And then did he react when he was cursed, die? No, he accepted it. So on the one hand, he's insulted by someone who won't speak to him, and that affects him. But on the other hand, he's actually cursed to die in 1 week, and he says, Sarathi. And he smiles. No problem. I've been overcome by the Lord in the form of a curse. That's the translation. I've been overcome by the Lord himself in the form of a Brahman's curse. And he, smilingly, he went to the river Jamuna and died. So Krishna gave him that intelligence. So we may be a little bit apprehensive about being put into a difficult situation, but Krishna will help us. And then we'll think, wow, I could never have handled this if it wasn't for Krishna. And then our appreciation for Krishna increases. And we get closer to him. That makes sense? Anything else?
These examples that we discussed now, they're basically between devotees. When the devotee cursing another devotee, or we shouldn't offend the devotee, or devotee curses us, we should accept it. What about the materialists? How should we react there?
Well, honestly speaking, materialists we see as young children. If your son Nityananda or Advaita says something rude to you, do you take it seriously? You smile. So when it comes to materialists, we don't take it seriously. They're like young children. When Haridas Thakur was being whipped in the marketplace, he didn't take it seriously, and he prayed to the Lord on their behalf. So we don't. When conditioned souls who are bewildered by the material energy offend us, then we should understand they don't know what they're doing and they're like young children. But that only comes, that's called forgiveness. Kshama. Kshama means forgiveness. Govinda Maharaj described forgiveness is between humility and meekness. So between humility and tolerance is this forgiveness. And it's the quality of a Brahmin. A Brahmin. Sometimes people become Brahmins. Prabhupada is training us to become Brahmins. The real qualification of a Brahmin is not the 4 principles. That externally, yes, chanting so many rounds or wearing a thread or whatever, saying the Gayatri Mantra. The real quality of a Brahmin is forgiveness. And that's how you can tell whether someone is really a Brahmin or not. If they get offended or if they get criticized, how quick, how ready are they to forgive? That's the unique quality of a Brahmin, to forgive. And the example, Ambarish Maharaj. He's cursed by Devasa Muni, and he puts his hands together and says, I accept your curse. I'm sorry. For whatever I did do or didn't do, I am sorry. And he took the blame. But Ambarish Maharaj was blameless. Or Chitraketu Maharaj. He didn't really say anything wrong, but he accepted Parvati's curse. He immediately forgave her. He's being cursed to take birth as a demon, and immediately he forgives. So this is real Brahmin forgiveness. So when a conditioned soul criticizes us, we never take it seriously. Can't take it seriously. If you take that seriously, you go nuts. Because they're always criticizing you. They're always laughing at you. Snidey remarks and this and that, isn't it? Always. Oh, I never take it seriously. You laugh it off. Ha 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 ha. It's when devotees criticize, it hurts a lot more, because they're the, it's the same family, What hurts more than the arrows of the enemy is the stinging words of one's own family members. So when your own family members, that means, Vaishnavas, when they criticize, that hurts a lot more than outsiders, because you expect outsiders to be abrupt and to say this and that. That's why, it does affect us sometimes as devotees when we're criticized by other devotees. We should try also to understand it. Criticism is coming by Krishna's arrangement, and it's simply to humble us. That's all. Our pride has gone a little too high. Krishna's checking it and bringing it down a little. Anything else? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.